morning. Good morning. Good morning and welcome to the Ventura Center for Spiritual Living. I'm Reverend Bonnie Rose and it is lovely to see you here this morning. Let's stand up and we'll sing together our opening song, which is called This Is My Heaven. We'll sing it and join together in a community as we do. And here we go. And so I invite you to be seated, and instead of the traditional sacred reading that we've done in the past, we're going to have a reading or a recitation with movement provided by our own very beloved Mary Kerrigan. So I invite you to take a deep breath, and now exhale and open your eyes in love with what is, as it is, and so it is.
A soul and ego. A soul had an ego come to life in a challenging time called birth. Soul brought some wisdom, ego, ambition, wrapped in a body on earth. Soul looked out for the love she sought and cried from her heart within, "Oh, ego, pesky ego, you're a real pest. You make me feel ugly as sin, as sin, as sin, and you cloud my light from within." Ego said to the soul, "You silly old soul, I'm doing my job, that's all. It's not I to blame for your pride and your shame. It's your job to get past my wall." They shed many tears and struggled for years. Ow! Until landing at Science of Mind. And there, in the midst of mystical bliss, lonely soul joined exactly her kind, bringing soul her own peace of mind. "Oh, mind, am I willing to have this great healing of love?" Said the ego, "I will. By accepting this love and expressing this love, they now soar, enjoying their fill. They live in peace and bless their sweet life, letting go of all notions of sin. And heart in hand, where spirit meets man, they dance by the light from within. Within, within, they dance by the light from within.
All right, so let us turn within and just cherish that beautiful moment that we just shared together as a community. That love and that tenderness for all of the forsaken parts of ourselves fits in so beautifully with what Brock said in his announcement about the Zen Buddhist monk, about being able to hold everything in love. So let's do that now as we remember the truth of who we are, that everything about us is a call for more love, not less love. And we remember that as we sing, "I am remembering who I am. I am a being that is worthy of love." And as we remember it for ourselves, since there is only one of us, we remember it for every single person in this room and every single being in the universe. We sing together, "I am remembering." I am.
You're broken down and tired of living life on a merry-go-round. you can't find the fighter, but I see it in you, and we're gonna walk it out and move mountains. We're gonna walk it out and move mountains. And I'll rise up, I'll rise like the day. I will rise up, I'll rise unafraid. I will rise up, and I'll do it all again. I will rise up high like the waves. I will rise up in spite of the ache. I will rise up, and I'll do it all again. For you, for you, for you, for you. When the silence isn't quiet and it feels like it's getting hard to breathe, and I know you feel like dying, but I promise you we'll bring the world to its feet and move mountains. Bring it to its feet and move mountains. And I'll rise up, I'll rise like the day. I will rise up, I'll rise unafraid. I will rise up, and I'll do it all again. For you, for you, for you, for you. All we need is hope. For that we got each other. For that we got each other. We will rise, we will rise, I will rise up, and I'll rise up, I'll rise like the day. I will rise up, I'll rise unafraid. I will rise up, and I'll do it all again. We will rise up, we'll rise like the waves. We will rise up in spite of the ache. We will rise up, and we'll do it all again. For you, for you, for you, for you. Rise up.
So, as you know, this is Testimonial Sunday, and we've got two wonderful testifiers today. We've got Norm Fort and Peter Frank. Testimonial Sunday, yay, okay, you want to clap? Yeah. Testimonial Sunday is an opportunity for members of the congregation to step forward and tell how the work that we do in this spiritual center has impacted their lives. And so without further ado about any of that, I'm going to invite our first testifier to come up, who is Norm Ford. Let's give Norm some love.
Feel your love. Thank you. I was talking about this earlier with Tobias, and he said, "Are you going to talk about monarch butterflies?" Bridge to paradise? I said, "No, not this time, but maybe later." Okay. I came to this center about 8 years ago. I actually migrated from one of the more traditional churches up the road. And I think the reason I came here, there was a banner above the front door that said Ventura Center for Spiritual Living, a fun place for spiritual growth. And I thought, that's kind of strange. But I came in, and beautiful sanctuary, beautiful sanctuary. But I was amazed there was not a cross at the front. And I was looking around, and I realized there were no hymn books in the back of the pews. Matter of fact, there weren't any pews. There were just theater seats. And there was actually a guest speaker that week, and he talked about, going back to the no cross, there was a plaque that said, "To love as God loves." And that felt kind of strange to me, but it felt good to me. And anyway, the guest speaker talked about love and talked about kindness, talked about living our best life and honoring all paths to God. Honoring all paths to God. And he didn't talk about sin. He didn't talk about judgment, things that, I'm familiar with, right? And that whole experience was so different from what I was familiar with. And to tell you the truth, it seemed kind of weird. And when I left, the lady at the back, Judy Rogers, greeted me warmly and welcomed me back and said, "Oh, you'll have to come back when our regular minister, Reverend Bonnie Rose, is here." And I did come back. I did not realize it at the time, but that was my homecoming. And here we are, almost 8 years later. We laugh a lot. We've shared some sad times together. We take classes and we study together. And I've come to know an all-inclusive God, and that's pure love. A few years ago, when I'd first started working for Family to Family, one of the volunteers gave me a big bowl with individually wrapped candies in it and said, just as they finish eating, just walk up and down the aisle there by the table and offer them some candy. And so I did, and as I would walk up the table, our people that were eating would hold out their hands, cupped like that, as if they were taking the sacraments. And I asked somebody, "Why are they doing that?" And she said, "Oh, it's because we told them a long time ago, don't stick your hand in the candy bowl because your hands are so dirty." And that did not feel right to me. I campaigned with bureaucracy, and eventually we got some handy wipe dispensers, and we got some paper towel, and everything was going along real well for a while, and then somebody plugged up the sewer. That sounds familiar, right? And they took the dispensers down, and it was about that same time that we were taking the third force class, the affirming force and the denying force, reconciling force. And as it would be in class, I told about the dirty hand story, and they took away our dispensers. So where's the third force in that? And the reconciling force was the hand towel soap kits that we have now. And that's the way it started. Actually, what I want to talk to you about today is something that is very close to my heart. Tell you some stories about my unsheltered brothers and sisters. And I'll tell you how these encounters have changed my life. Okay. First one I'll tell you about, and there's so many I had to choose, but the first one I'll tell you about, a friend and I we're going out to lunch at a little restaurant there in Ojai. And as we walked from the back parking lot towards the restaurant, my friend motioned towards the hedge. And I kind of stepped over and looked, and there was a little person that was huddled under the hedge there. And I went over to get a closer look, and I got down and I looked, and it was a little old woman, sun-leathered, dressed in rags, and instinctively, without much thought, I reached in my pocket and peeled off some bills and handed it to her, and she actually recoiled as I was handing her the bills. And I really didn't think much about it. I went to the restaurant, had a good lunch and everything. Walked back out to the car, walked past her. Didn't think anything about it. Really didn't think anything about it. But later, when I just going through my regular day, I couldn't get the image of that woman out of my mind. And as the days passed, I really had some soul-searching moments. And I had to confront the fact that I just really didn't have any feelings about my unsheltered brothers and sisters or their circumstances. I'm a good guy, right? I always give them money, right? And I would lay awake at night with tears in my eyes, replaying the scene of that frightened little old lady crouched back under the hedge. And then suddenly it became very clear to me. And I actually made a note of it at the time so I wouldn't lose it in the morning light. I'll read this to you. Many years before the exact time long forgotten, 2 cells, a sperm and an egg, came together, and a love story of creation began. 9 months later, a little baby girl was born. Her first gift was a name, given with love because she was special, and her future seemed so bright. And then life got in the way. Drugs, alcohol, mental illness, so many possible causes. And because of circumstances that we cannot know, this precious little baby girl, now grown old, was living in fear, huddled under some bushes. This was not a life that she had chosen. It was not a life that she had chosen. Second story I want to share with you is one about an encounter I had with a young man that was actually walking on the shoulder of the road. I was going to my ranch in Fillmore, and I went around the road by this old trailer park, and on the shoulder of the road there was this fellow that was dragging some luggage, some great big suitcases and a backpack and stuff. He's dragging his baggage in the gravel, and he was just wringing wet with sweat from his ball cap and his old T-shirt and his shorts. And I immediately pulled off the side of the road, turned on my hazard lights, and got out and walked back to him. I said, "Do you need a ride?" And this man was so angry that he was just spewing words. I mean, I couldn't understand his words, but apparently he needed a ride because he started walking towards my car, and I got his stuff and put it in the back seat, put him in the back seat because I had a bunch of gear in the front. And we pulled out, started towards Fillmore. And he just really, in a raging, loud voice, he just kept spewing things, and I couldn't understand the words, but I got a couple of things. Apparently, he'd been at the trailer park, and the people there had taken all of his money for his rent, and then they threw him out. And here he was unsheltered. And he wasn't angry at me. He was just raging angry. His face was bright red. And I thought, man, this guy may have a stroke right here in the car. And I kept telling him, brother, please be calm, because I'm afraid you're going to hurt yourself. Afraid you're going to hurt yourself. Try to be calm. He just kept on raging, but he mentioned something about a church. And he mentioned something about a Shell gas station. And I kind of put the two together. And I said, I think he's talking about the church, the Catholic church there in Fillmore. So we were going down the road about 2 or 3 miles, pulled over to the curb, and that was the church that he was going to. And so we both got out, and I helped him get his luggage. Everything was collected, and we were just standing there facing each other for a minute. He stepped across the space between us, and in a very calm, gentle voice, he hugged me and he said, I will never forget what you did for me. We both went our ways. He went to the church office and I got back in my car. Third story I'll share with you today is about Jordan. I think most of us know about Jordan, a young man that was here for a couple of days back in May. I was here helping with a project, and Jordan and his girlfriend and a little dog were here. Jordan would come and go because he was trying to make arrangements for shelter. He shared his story with me, a very familiar story. They had been unable to pay their rent, so he was evicted. They lived in their car for a while. They were unable to make car payments, and the car was repossessed. So here they were, unsheltered and living on the street. And so many people and so many groups came together that second day to arrange for shelter. I think Brock was the one that got the motel room for him. Reverend Bonnie arranged for meals for him. But other churches were working with us as well. And the second day, Jordan came to me, and he said, there's a group from St. Vincent de Paul that's going to give us a ride down to the motel. But I've got to run some errands, so could you kind of watch for him? And just let him know, please don't leave me because I'll be back in just a little bit. And I said, sure, not a problem. I was working in the Santa Clara Street garden, and, typical gardening clothes, just old dirty T-shirt and my jeans and everything. And as I was working, I looked up and I saw a couple sitting on the steps. And so I walked over to him, and as I walked toward him, the lady said, "Are you Jordan? Are you Jordan?" And I said, "No, I'm not Jordan, but he asked me to tell you that he'll be back in just a little bit, okay, and please wait for him." And as I lay in bed that night and I reviewed my experience with Jordan, it came to me very clearly. I am Jordan. I am Jordan. I am that angry young man on the shoulder of the road. I'm all of these, my brothers. There's only one of us. There's only one of us. But because of these encounters and so many others, I've come to believe that God comes to us sometimes in disguise to change our heart and change our lives. Sometimes maybe disguised as a little girl grown old and unsheltered, hiding in some shrubbery, or an angry young man whose words have been softened by a small act of kindness, or a gentle soul with limited resources trying to care for his family. I'll quote you a line from one of Rumi's poems. "Love so needs to be loved, it will endure almost anything, even abuse, just to flicker for a moment. And I believe when my soul looks beyond the human distractions of poverty or mental illness, addiction, and I shake the hand of my brother or my sister, and we exchange names, and for that brief moment, our souls connect. It makes me sad because I can't change your circumstances. I can't make them better. But I can let you know that I care about you by offering you a little kit with a bar of soap and a washcloth in it, or a couple of power bars, or a little plastic bag with some kibble for your dog. And I believe that these small acts of kindness do change our hearts and can change our world. I'm so glad that our center is a part of this. Thanks for listening. I love you so much.
All right, now let's send some love to Peter Frank, who's doing the second testimonial. Yay!
Wow, how do you follow that? Man. My testimony is going to be a little bit different. It's about our visitor who's coming next week and the impact that he has had on my life, on this church, and on Reverend Bonnie. You may have received a card when you entered in community today, and there's more cards in the social hall at the artist's desk. There's also some balloons there, and there's a great big red heart balloon. So if you didn't get one, please feel free to get one back there. There's also a tag card, thoughtful, anonymous gift. You're it. Do something nice for something. Keep the spirit going. So these cards are back there for you to take, to choose to use. You may have received this card. They are back there now if you didn't. You may take more. They are there for you. It's simply a deck of playing cards with a kindness challenge written on each card. That's 52 cards, 52 weeks of challenges, a full year to practice acts of kindness. You may have seen the YouTube video of Nipun talking about the Smile Deck. It was an alternative to pranks that were occurring at colleges. Rather than do a prank, let's go to the other end of the spectrum and do an act of kindness. About 7 years ago, Nipun's first visit, we began the Wednesday Kindness Circle and meditation. I pulled a card and passed the deck around the circle. The first card that I ever picked up, the Queen of Diamonds. Hand out balloons to people passing by in a public area. Are you crazy? People are going to think I'm nuts. I am not handing out balloons to complete strangers. No way. The deck went around the circle. And when it returned, I hid my car and pulled out a second card. This one has got to be better. The Ace of Hearts. Hug the first 5 people you see. Yeah, right. You now want me to go up and hug 5 strangers? I can't even hand them a balloon, much less hug them. I'm introverted. I'm more introspective. That's not my style. So I had to confess I pulled a third card. Give a coworker an anonymous treat. Now that I could do. I bought a candy bar, and I gave it to a coworker anonymously. You've been tagged with a kindness card. And I saw the ripple effect. That person's attitude was beaming all day. It affected all of us at work. Since then, here at church, we've come up with our own challenges, like returning shopping carts, put one thing back in its place, ask someone, how may I help you? And I cannot begin to tell you how many of you have come up to me or to Reverend Bonnie and shared your experiences and stories. Recently, I had a challenge of inviting 10 people to Wednesday's meditation. What was I thinking? I laughed because I came up with it. I had trouble handing out balloons and hugging 5 people. How am I going to invite them to a meditation without them thinking I'm trying to convert them to our church? So I knew a few people who wouldn't be able to attend. They were very easy to invite. Then one person I did know, I went up there and just started talking to her. How's your summer going? She started to tell me about all that small stuff that got under her skin. The little things that built up to bug, annoy, and irritate her. From the news, from traffic, from work, from politics, until with heated breath, she became completely frustrated and angry. It was easy and natural for her to complain, as natural as breathing. I think it's become a habit for myself and for many of us. But here's where we get a chance to embrace the other end of the spectrum, embrace it with kindness. What if we allow the small act of kindness to get under our skin? Let the small acts of kindness permeate every cell of our bodies. Let the small acts of kindness fill our thoughts, words, and actions. I tell you, when I do, the dramas of life aren't so dramatic. At the last Wednesday's meditation, the question came up about sharing our acts of kindness, and that it almost felt like bragging. I agreed. But then I would have to ask, why is it so easy to share the things that bug and annoy us, those things that get under our skin and irritate us until we explode in rage, anger, or other ways? It's easy to share and talk about those annoying things. We're just sharing at the other end of the spectrum. We're sharing the small acts of kindness. Let's allow those small acts to get under our skin and talk about them just as enthusiastically, and allow each small kind act to get under our skin and change us at a cellular level so we explode with kindness and love. Let the sharing of kindness inspire and encourage us. I have to confess, I did invite 5 people to the meditation, not 10. I have not hugged 5 random strangers on the street. But that candy bar, the anonymous treat, is still randomly occurring at our work site. As for the balloon, I bought it, but I never gave it away. I guess, like Mary's prayer and performance, my ego got in the way. That balloon was full of hot air. Now I'm working on inflating a new balloon, one filled with heart air. I'm working on kindness. I see where my challenges are. I'll pick the acts that are easy for me to do and stretch myself to do the challenging ones. And I hope you choose a few cards to challenge yourself, and by sharing your stories, we can all encourage and support each other to stretch a bit. Now you might ask why. I often wonder. This past year, we had many tragedies. I wonder, What if that distraught person received a heart air balloon or a candy bar? Their hands would have been too full to hold a gun. And maybe with an anonymous hug, the heart would have been too full to hurt or shoot anyone. Someone who is feeling down and blue, depressed and lonely, isolated and alone, your act of kindness might just reconnect them back into community. I was going to go into a meditation right now about community, how Martin Luther King had a dream, how the Beatles sang Imagine. But look around you. We don't have to dream. We don't have to imagine. We are already there. Together we can, with one small act of kindness at a time, build a community rooted in compassion and love. Recently, a friend took me down to Yogananda's place, and a story was told about a sad and depressed person who was told to pick up trash at a park. And with a little bow, say, "I do this for you, God." Within time, their sadness and depression lifted. I invite you to do an act of kindness and offer your own silent prayer. I do this for you, God, for love. Or maybe, I do this for you, Ventura. I do this for you, community. I do this for you, world. I do this for you, humanity. Whatever your act of kindness is, do it with a purpose. And finally, in the spirit of television and all the disclosures of the TV ads, I must give you this warning. Playing with kindness cards may cause outbursts of joy, a sense of peace, inner transformation, and love. They may transform you and others to levels of healthy attitudes. Stress, anxiety, and complaining may dissipate. Practicing with the kindness challenge cards may just transform your life, your health, your community, and the world, causing a ripple effect, an explosion of global radical kindness. And finally, this global kindness of heart air may counteract all the global warming of hot air. For both surely do occur with one small act at a time. God, I do this for you. Community, I do this for you. I ask you now to go into silence. What is your heart opening you to do? And as we stand in this silence, I'm going to ask Reverend Bonnie to come up. What is your one small act that you are willing to do?
Me?
No.
Oh, okay.
I was going to let you go into
Okay.
prayer.
So we'll clap for Peter later, because Peter wants
Yes.
me to pray. So let's just go ahead and we'll continue to breathe in this beautiful spaciousness that Mary and Norm and Peter created with their words, that opened our hearts up to possibilities, knowing that possibility is God, that possibility is love, that possibility is truly our higher power. And in the spaciousness of this possibility, we connect with that possibility and know that this is who we are, that the whole and healed word, that the beauty of the soul, that the ability to look past appearances of despair or mental illness or tragedy, despair, all of those things, all of that is that beautiful emergence of a wonderful, wonderful love that is seeking emergence through each of us. And so I celebrate the words that have been spoken today, and I trust them, and I know that they have opened up each of us in new and wonderful ways that allow us to be that change that we wish to see in the world. That we lead by inner transformation, that we focus on the small, that we become the wholeness that already is. And so I'm just so grateful for everyone that has participated in this service. So grateful. So grateful for Freudian slips, so grateful for everything. So grateful for God and for this teaching. So grateful for all teachings everywhere. I bless all paths to God, churches, synagogues, temples, mosques, ashrams. And with a heart that is so filled with service and so filled with grace, I say thank you, Spirit, thank you, God, and I release these words into the mystical law, and together we say, and so it is. I am...
It was the light from light. It was the love from love. Do you know in whose image you were made? Do you know in whose image you were made, my friends? Do you know in whose image you were made? It was the light from light. It was the love from love. Do you know in whose image you were made? Do you ever wonder deep down in your soul? Do you ever